We are well into 2020, and it's been a rough year, to put it mildly. But with all the terrible things going on in the world, on a large scale, there will still be the little annoyances. The problems that frustrate you and make you want to bang your head against the wall. For a lot of YouTubers, this problem has been the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. As some of you may be aware, YouTube has been enforcing some changes in regards to certain demographics, namely complying with COPPA laws and requiring content creators to distinguish whether or not their videos are intended for kids. This creates a really awkward situation in getting content monetized because anything that's a little too risque gets the yellow dollar sign of death. So if a YouTuber's video is meant for kids, it can't be monetized under these new rules, and if it's not meant for kids, there's also a good chance it might not be monetized. Well, it may be obvious already, but this channel, Alien Theory, tends to contain mature subject matter. So in honor of this momentous, maddening migraine of a situation, we may as well go big or go home. Let's cover some adult content. Let's talk about the sex scene with Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn in The Terminator. Let's talk about the seductive striptease performed by Jamie Lee Curtis in front of Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies. Let's talk about Kate Winslet's erotic portrait being drawn by Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic. Let's talk about the bizarre interspecies outdoor tryst in Avatar. What do all these scenes have in common? Well, they're titillating scenes to some degree or another featured in films by James Cameron, who, despite directing these scenes, seemed to have had a problem with Sigourney Weaver stripping down to her underwear at the end of Alien. In 2018, he addressed these issues to Australian news outlets while he was promoting an exhibition in Sydney. This was a little bit after he raised some controversy in criticizing the film Wonder Woman, which was a big hit in summer 2017. His alien quotes were picked up by the Australian newspaper The Daily Mercury in an article that gives focus to Sigourney Weaver's strip-down scene in Alien and how it shaped Cameron's approach to the character in the sequel. The article states the following. Famed filmmaker and deep-sea explorer James Cameron has revealed the one scene which crossed the line over the sexualization of women in film. It comes after the director called last year's critically acclaimed film Wonder Woman a step backwards for women. In Sydney, as part of Vivid Ideas and to launch his major new exhibition at the Australian National Maritime Museum, James Cameron, Challenging the Deep, he told news.com.au, it was a scene in Ridley Scott's Alien, the first of the series which would later be directed by Cameron, that forced him to push back on the objectification of women in film. The scene in question refers to Sigourney Weaver's famous strip in one of the film's final moments. Weaver's character, Ellen Ripley, dropped her gear, according to Cameron, leaving the viewers watching Weaver simply in her panties. For me, that stepped over the line. When I took over, I said I think I can make a movie with a compelling female character who doesn't have to do that. So that's been my goal and my mission throughout, he told news.com.au. I've never really operated under studio pressure. I'm sure a lot of filmmakers do feel pressure to sexualize characters, but I was able to be successful enough, early enough, that they kind of left me alone aesthetically. I follow my own muse for what I think is right. My films continue to be successful, and they continue not to objectify women, so I think that speaks for itself. I made it my goal to make women interesting without making them sex objects, and I think I was pretty successful in doing that. Usually in interviews or commentaries when speaking of the first Alien film, James Cameron is wholly complimentary, so to see criticism like this is a little surprising. I don't mean to bring this topic up and talk about some of his other works in a way to call out Cameron for any kind of hypocrisy or to say he's flat out wrong for making these comments, but it does bring up an interesting issue. An age-old issue of where exactly that line is between artistic intent and pornographic interpretation. With something like Titanic, for example, Cameron could have had every intention in the world to make the drawing scene as tasteful as possible, a romantic moment with artistic intent. It could absolutely be his goal not to objectify Kate Winslet in any way, but someone could just as easily say it's a hokey scene that exploits Winslet and unnecessarily shows off her breasts. Interesting to note, however, that despite the nudity, Titanic was rated PG-13 on appeal to the MPAA, so Cameron must have made a reasonable enough case for that scene. But the argument could be for anything: movies, paintings, sculptures, any kind of art that expresses any kind of sexuality. Alien has a lot of sexual imagery and can be interpreted in many ways. The same stands for its final scene where Ripley strips down. One way to look into it, of course, is to not look into it, just take it at face value with no particular profound meaning. She's in the shuttle, seemingly safe and sound, preparing to go into hypersleep, and in order to do that, she removes most of her clothes. That happens to be the inopportune moment where the alien reveals itself for one final tension-filled scene. And hey, who among us hasn't found themselves at the end of a long, hard day where our first action, when we know we're alone, is to hang around in our underwear? I think that's fair enough. Another way to look at it is that while she's not completely nude, Ripley is revealing her female form, which has always been the subject of great art, and Sigourney Weaver is of course very attractive, and she is displaying it here. Contrast that to the hideous xenomorph creature that's pursuing her, and there's a good Beauty and the Beast theme working in the scene. Whether you find it tawdry or exploitive or not, it's become some of the most memorable, iconic imagery of the film. Whatever the interpretation, it makes an impression. And if you want to go even deeper with the psychosexual analytical angle of the scene, well, she's partially naked, she's vulnerable, the creature may be intrigued by this, moving slowly, sensually even, as Ripley gears up in the spacesuit. She's afraid, she's panting and moaning, and it does sound a little sexual, so it's a strange dance going on between these two beings. It tries to penetrate her, with its clearly phallic inner jaw, but before it is able to do so, she is able to penetrate it with the harpoon gun, disempowering it. You can absolutely view it that way, sure. Though sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. The article in the Daily Mirror provides a rebuttal of sorts to Cameron's opinion from Sigourney Weaver herself, citing a 1981 interview in which she was initially keen on the idea of her character being naked because it would have been a nice contrast to the alien story unfolding before her character. You see the alien in its birthday suit the entire film, so I thought it was a cop-out having me wear the underwear and not stripping entirely, Weaver said. After receiving criticism for the strip after the movie's release, Weaver said it never occurred to her that people might think the strip exploitative, but having received the mail I have, I would now think twice about taking off all my clothes in a movie. People have said, "Aw, how could you demean yourself by doing a striptease?" And I say, are you kidding? After 5 days of blood and guts and fear and sweat and urine, do you think Ripley wouldn't take off her clothes? Also, in the 2003 Special Edition DVD commentary, Weaver joined Ridley Scott to discuss the film and elaborated further on some of the original intentions of the scene. We actually wanted to have more of a quasi-sex scene. We wanted the alien to come and look at her through the glass and be intrigued by the soft pinkness of her, compared to him. We wanted him to be that intelligent, and that it kind of turned him on. Beauty and the Beast, I think we were going for. If things turned out differently while making the film, if Ripley had been stark naked, if there had been a more overtly sexual tone to the scene, then maybe it just wouldn't have been quite as digestible as it remains. Sometimes the subtle hints at these things can work better than explicitly displaying them. Maybe they actually were able to find that appropriate line and not cross it, as James Cameron believes it to have done. I'd actually be very curious to know what Cameron would have to say about some of those original intentions. He is, of course, entitled to his opinion, and I don't mean to knock him in any way for expressing how he feels. In fact, if those beliefs led to the way he presented Ripley in the sequel, and all the great traits he brought to the character, then it's all the better just for that. How do you feel about this scene? Do you think it crossed any kind of line? Was it all for a cheap thrill? Is there more to read into it? Do you think the original intentions could have worked better? Please comment below and let me know what you think. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI executives, EmYarUk, Mark Fox, and in the Ellen Ripley tier of excellence, Lady Anne. My thanks also goes out to the Hive Queens, Ronni, Jensen, and Alyssane, all part of the Patreon Hive. With a video like this surely at risk of getting that pesky yellow $sign, patrons are appreciated now more than ever. And I thank you all for your support so that I can continue to discuss the topics that I find interesting, and that I think others will find interesting as well, without having to worry about censoring this kind of subject matter. So a huge thanks to all my patrons. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.